What up, everybody? It's your boy Jay, and I am back once again for a brand new episode of Comic Chaser, my weekly comic book review series. By the time you're seeing this, it is probably sometime Tuesday, maybe Tuesday night-ish, depending. So this is my coverage of the book that came out this past week, and I might even talk about the books that I'm looking forward to coming out next week. We'll check that out in a second. We'll probably do that at the end. I know I said that last time and I totally forgot to do it, but I will do it this time for sure. So we've got like 8 books, so it's not a super heavy week this week. The reason I'm recording this so late is because I went to a local Comic-Con this weekend, Tidewater Comic-Con. It was a blast. I got to meet and speak with Mark Waid, who is a really awesome dude. One of my favorite comic writers of all time. Turned out to be a really nice guy, and that's always nice to hear. And his panel was awesome. I went to his panel, asked a few questions, got my Kingdom Come signed, and I also got a copy of a certain single issue that I got this week signed. So we'll get to that when we get to that. But yeah, we've got 8 books to cover, so we'll go through this as quickly as possible. You guys know I love to yap, so it's probably going to be a long video anyway, so grab a snack and get comfy as always. And as per usual, spoilers for all the books I am about to cover. So let's get ready and let's get started. We're going to do this countdown style as always, start at the top of the pile and make our way to the book of the week at the end. So, first off, we have Wolverine and Kitty Pryde, issue number 3. I think it's 3 of 4. It might be 3 of 5. I don't know how long this miniseries is. It's written by Chris Claremont. And this issue was a lot of fun. I like this a lot. This one really kind of shows Kitty solidifying her resolve. And it's really the turning point that turns Kitty from the, naive kid ride-along POV character that she was in the 80s into the, veteran, battle-tested X-Men that we know of her today. And this is really interesting for me because, I've read the original Kitty Pryde and Wolverine, but I also wasn't around during the 80s. I mean, I read some of the stuff from the 90s because my uncles had back issues and stuff, and I read some of the stuff from the 80s, but I wasn't around to fully experience Kitty's journey, so this is really interesting for me. I know Kitty as the fully formed character that we know today. One of my first series that I ever picked up, X-Men wise, that had Kitty in it was it Astonishing X-Men? I'm pretty sure it was Astonishing X-Men, the Joss Whedon one where he had Kitty phase that bullet. And ever since then, I thought Kitty was super cool, and I've went back and I've read a lot of her stuff. But, she's one of my favorite X-Men, and to see this kind of point where she finally kind of buckles down and is like, nope, I've got to do what I got to do, and I will not let someone take control of me or, decide my destiny for me, was really cool. I like the use of this particular villain that they have here involving Trask. Of course, you see all the Sentinels surrounding them, and it ends on one hell of a cliffhanger. This is a great book. I'm glad we got a sequel to this. It's a lot of fun. It definitely brings you right back to that time period, especially in terms of the art as well. Love that shit. This is honestly my favorite kind of era within X-Men art is the late 80s, early 90s type shit. So, really good book. I enjoyed it a lot. Next up, we have Martian Manhunter, issue number 4 of 12. Written by Dennis Camp, art by Javier Rodriguez, art and colors by Javier Rodriguez. And this was better than the previous 2 issues. The previous 2 issues I was kind of just meh on. But here, I'm definitely more invested, but mostly due to the kind of turmoil and tension between John and his wife, and him kind of trying to navigate that, and also just kind of the world going to shit around him, but also he finds clever solutions to certain problems by kind of introducing empathy to the situations in certain points by using the Martian's powers, which is super interesting. And then the issue ends with apparently the White Martians plunging the world into darkness, which is what they wanted, because apparently the sun and the heat is their weakness too. Interested to see what's going on here. Still not my favorite of the Absolute books. This is probably still the weakest one in my opinion, but that does not mean it's not fun. And art-wise, it goes into a lot of interesting directions. You know, Javier Rodriguez started out as a colorist in the beginning of his career, so he really knows how to play with color, and it's very well done in this. And also, like, the lettering and the different kind of changes in font to indicate, like, the, like, reading of people's minds, and then, like, the Martian communicating with John is really interesting. There are a lot of cool stylistic choices in here. The story is pretty solid, but again, definitely not my favorite Absolute book, but still a very good read. Alright, this one is technically from last week, or 2 weeks ago as of this recording, I guess. But I forgot to pick it up, and what had happened was I picked up a variant of issue 4, not realizing the issue that I was going for was actually issue 5. So this is actually One World Under Doom issue number 5, kind of the defeat of Dormammu, with the help of the returning heroes, because if you remember the previous issue, Doom actually was able to bring the heroes back from the dimension that Dormammu trapped them in, and so they work together to defeat Doom, and Doom seals away Dormammu, but basically he makes it kind of a double-edged sword, that Dormammu is sealed away only as long as Doom's reign continues. And, you know, some of the heroes legit are won over by Doom, because honestly, still, we're like 4 issues in, and I'm like, alright, so like, where is the bad part here? Like, so far, Doom has not been doing anything that I see as, like, evil. He didn't mind control any of the world leaders. He didn't blackmail them. He just did their job better and kind of took over. Like, yeah, it's invasive, but he got the job done. So, like, I'm still kind of wondering, like, where's the big uh-oh here? And even Thor is like, I don't know, you guys. Doom seems to be pretty good at his job, and he saved the 9 realms. I come from a world that's ruled by a king, and several of the nations here on Midgard are ruled by kings. I see nothing wrong with Earth being under an emperor as well. Like, well, what's up with why are you guys complaining about this? He's actually improving your world, like, which is like my whole thing, right? And the only issue I have with this event is that the heroes are all acting like idiots. But, like, Maria Hill shows up at the very end saying, well, I think we found, what Doom's been hiding, and it's pretty huge. This better actually be something huge, Maria, because honestly, I'm on Doom's side for this. Maybe I am biased because I am a Doctor Doom fan, but, like, he is killing it in terms of, like, ruling the world. Like, I legit don't see anything wrong with what's going on here in terms of the state of the world, like, as a whole. So curious to see where it goes. Ryan North continues to write his ass off in this. We'll talk more about Ryan North later, don't you worry. He may or may not have what was almost my pick. I don't know, is it my pick of the week, or it is my pick of the week. He may or may not have my pick of the week. I might have just spoiled if it is or not, but, like, yeah. Art by R.B. Silva continues to be solid. The faces are actually a lot better here. It feels like it's improving as the series goes on. But I really enjoyed this issue. Definitely, One World Under Doom continues to be a fun event. Alright, next up we have Vision and Scarlet Witch issue number 2. This is a continuation of the Scarlet Witch series by Steve Orlando, and it continues to kill it. And this picks up where the last issue left off, where basically Vision was resurrected via Wanda's magic, or what seemed like he was resurrected, because he was murdered by the Grim Reaper at the end of the last issue, and then Wanda brought him back. But it turned out she did not, like, use necromancy or whatever to bring him back, even though you can't really use necromancy on a robot. She kind of just brought his soul back from the brink and revived him, but then he came back as White Vision. But this White Vision is different from the White Vision that, we're all aware of, because Old school White Vision was like Vision with all his emotions turned off, but this White Vision is kind of the opposite, where all his emotions are turned up to 11, and he can feel all of his emotions like, to the nth degree, and so he's being really overwhelmed by them. But it also gives him a chance to really open up to Wanda and kind of talk about his feelings about, all the crazy shit that's gone on with him, including the murder of Eric Williams, the Grim Reaper, at the hand of his wife Virginia, the death of his son Vin, and all that stuff. So, once Wanda helps Vision kind of, be copacetic and get himself under control, they decide to investigate more of those doors of death, and eventually, after dealing with somebody who's kind of taking advantage of one of these doors of death and trying to charge people for it, they rough him up a bit and scare him off, and then they manage to make their way in, and they are greeted by none other than Vision's dead son, Vin. Oh man, this is gonna be interesting. Is it an illusion? Is it really Vin? Does Vin have a soul? I mean, Viv is very human, but I don't remember if Vin fully developed in the same way Viv did. I'm gonna have to go back. I do have Vision in trade. I might need to reread it to refresh myself, but I'm very curious to see where that goes, man. I was a huge fan of Tom King's Vision miniseries, and this definitely feels like a sequel to that, which is sort of a I wouldn't say it's a negative for me because I read Vision and really enjoyed it, but if you are just a fan of the Scarlet Witch series who is continuing to read this because you love Wanda, you might be lost if you haven't been keeping up with Vision and the goings on with his family. So maybe read that for some context. There aren't even any editor's notes that really kind of help out with this, so I feel kind of bad for anybody who wasn't invested in Tom King's Vision miniseries. But for those of us who are, this was a great book. Steve Orlando continues to operate on all cylinders with this one. Really, really good book. I enjoyed it a lot. Moving on to Ultimate Spider-Man, issue number 18, written by Jonathan Hickman with art by Marco Cicchetto, or Cicchetto? I always don't know how to pronounce this. But yeah, so Pete and the fam are back in town now, and Pete gets to reunite with Harry. They have a nice heart-to-heart and a good banter. Turns out, while Pete was away, on the run, Otto moved into his house, and he's just like, what the fuck are you doing here? And he's like, well, after I set up the security systems for, your residence, I thought, waste not, want not. If you were here, if you weren't here, I might as well use it since I got kicked out of my place. And he even has Pete's slippers on. He's just like, are those my slippers? What the fuck, man? And so Pete and Harry team up, and they get to kick bad guy ass while they're waiting to meet up with Gwen. Meanwhile, Gwen meets up with the Mysterio Collective, the Mysterio, I don't want to say cult, but I guess Freemason lobby type beat. And basically, they reveal to her that due to her brash actions, now the Kingpin is at war with Mysterio, so now they all have to act accordingly. So, on the one hand, they're like, you ruined all our plans, you acted without consulting us, you were brash and reckless. But on the other hand, one of the Mysterios is like, no, she did what needed to be done. She's following the creed. She's living by our code. She actually took action while the rest of us were hiding and being cowards. So thank you, sister. I thought that was really cool. Nice development there. And then we move on to young Mr. Venom. Richie, Rich. My boy fumbled. He fell for the oldest trick in the book, the honey trap. He'd been starting to build up a nice, very solid, sweet relationship with Felicia. He let his guard down a little too much, and he fell for a trap. And now he's in a meeting with Kingpin, and Kingpin's like, alright, I know you're working with Spider-Man, so I'll give you a choice. You can either bring him to me, or I'll kill you. And now Richard's in a tight spot. I don't think Richard obviously is going to betray his father, because that will put his entire family at risk. But it definitely puts him in a precarious situation. And, like, I'm pretty sure we all saw the Felicia betrayal coming. Because, I mean, come on. Like, where, yes, Walter Hardy did have, like, a sense of honor and such. But, like, Felicia didn't really show that same sense of honor. And, she's affiliated with the Kingpin and his inner circle. So, like, was it really that big of a shock? No, but it's a good twist, and it definitely kind of gives Richard his own arc separate from his dad, but eventually this other shoe will drop, and it'll coalesce and, of course, affect Pete and the rest of the Parker family. Really good book. Ultimate Spider-Man is never bad. It's consistently one of the best books on the shelf, and, I dropped Amazing years ago, like after Nick Spencer's run, I believe. But, like, I'm glad to be able to regularly pick up a Spidey book every month that I actually enjoy. And Ultimate Spider-Man, fills that niche. Speaking of great Spider-Man books, next up we have Predator vs. Spider-Man issue number 3. I think this is also 3 of 5. Could be 3 of 4, but I think it's 3 of 5. Written by Bender and Percy. This continues to be awesome. It starts out with Spider-Man versus 3 Predators. And of course, these are the 3 Predators that are out hunting for Skinner, the disgraced Predator that is out, like, on a murder spree during one of New York's biggest heat waves. And it's pretty insane. Pete's able to hold his own pretty well, which is dope to see. Which was kind of crazy, because, like, these Predators have all these crazy weapons, but then again, Pete's been through a lot of shit and, a lot of high-tech villains in his days, so, like, totally makes sense that he's able to hold his own. And, I like that it was like, well, the Predators were here on a mission, but, they're not one to turn down a little sport, so they, obviously try and take out Spider-Man. Meanwhile, we see Mary Jane still trying to escape from Skinner, in kind of, I guess, like the catacombs or like sewers or underground sections of the city, and by the end, they end up in a very precarious situation. And of course, on the other end of that, we have Kraven trying to hunt down these Predators as well as Skinner. So we'll see where if all three of our parties will meet up, which will probably be in the 4th issue, and I can't wait to see that happen. Because then Spider-Man is going to team up with those 3 Predators against Kraven and Skinner, and it's going to be pretty fucking sick. If the first 2 issues, the first 3 issues are any indication, because, like, this book moves at a great pace. I love the action. I love the characterization of Pete here. He's in top form. This book is the shit. I absolutely love it. I'm going to have to wait until it ends to give, like, the final verdict of whether this is better than Predator vs. Wolverine, which is my favorite book of the Marvel vs. Predator verse, or Predator vs. Marvel verse. But it's definitely looking like it could be solid competition for it. And Percy just keeps killing it here, and I cannot wait to see Predator kills the Marvel Universe. Alright, moving on. We have Absolute Wonder Woman, issue number 9. This is part 2 of the new arc. I think it's called The Maze, or Monsters I've Made. I think that is what the arc is called. This is part 2 of 5. And I like that these arcs tell you it's like, part blank of blank, so you know how long the arc is. That just helps me with organization purposes, but maybe it's just me. This is, of course, written by Kelly Thompson with art by I want to say it is Hayden Sherman. Yeah, because this is the OG creative team. Yeah, so it's written by Kelly Thompson, art by Hayden Sherman. This continues from where we left off. Diana's dealing with the new absolute version of Dr. Poison, which is like who has like turned themselves into like a gaseous being similar to that one like German character from Hellboy who like operates in the suit and stuff. She basically, saved herself from harm by telling Diana, wait, I can tell you where another Amazon is. And then she basically explains that, like, in the area I work, Area 41, there is a maze underneath it. And I heard, and there's evidence that there's another Amazon there. And then Steve does a little research and he's like, Diana, this is clearly a trap. And I made some calls and did some digging. That place is not just a maze; it's a prison. If you get in there, that place is going to be sealed. And I love Diana's response. You should know me by now, Steve. I make my own doors. I thought that was sick. But also, Diana's like, look, this is something I've been searching for my entire life. Finding one of my sisters, if there's even a sliver of a chance, I'm going to take it, trap or not. Which is very Wonder Woman. And so she begins to explore this labyrinth, and she runs into, as we see on the cover of the issue, a Minotaur. But not just any Minotaur. If you are a Wonder Woman fan, you recognize that Minotaur's name. He is Ferdinand the Bull. Ferdinand the Minotaur. A recurring character in Greg Rucka's run of Wonder Woman back in the day, when he made her the ambassador for Themyscira when Themyscira joined the UN. Nice callback, and I love that we get to see Ferdinand here again as another ally to Wonder Woman, and that's really dope. There's another kind of flashback story going on simultaneously where Diana will be meeting Artemis for the first time. Like, child Diana will be meeting Artemis for the first time, and that's really interesting. And I love the dialogue, because she says, there's a pretty lady came to me in my dream with, she had antlers and blood on her face, and she said I had her favorite name in the world, which makes a lot of sense, because, her name is Diana, and Artemis, her Roman counterpart, is Diana, goddess of the hunt. So I'm really wondering, what Artemis's role is going to be in this. We saw that, Diana's backstory with Persephone played a big role in the previous arc with the little underworld tournament. So I wonder what role Artemis will serve in terms of this arc within the Labyrinth. Now, they do come across another female warrior. I don't remember her name off the top of my head. But when she approaches Ferdinand and she refers to herself as, the queen of this place, Diana looks at her and instantly is like, that's no Amazon. What the fuck is going on here? So I don't know who this lady is. I might do a little digging and see see what's up with that. If your Wonder Woman lore and knowledge base is deeper than mine, feel free to tell me in the comments if I missed a reference here. But definitely, once again, Absolute Wonder Woman continues to be a amazing book. My favorite Absolute book on the shelves right now. Continuously kicks so much ass. But for once in a while, it was not my book of the week. We're not quite there yet. We've got one more book before we hit book of the week. But it was almost there. Continues to be really, really great. Next up, here is the new history of the DC Universe, issue number 1. As you can see, signed by the man himself, Mark Magic Man Waid. Love to see it. There's a whole host of wonderful artists on here that covers every era that is, chronicled in this issue. It is a 4-issue miniseries where our man, Barry Allen, is chronicling the entire history of the DC Universe. Now, I actually got to hear Mark Waid kind of talk about this book at his panel, and it's really interesting because he says himself that to do research for this book, he literally read every DC comic that came out within the span of that particular area or era. So he read all the Golden Age stuff for this particular issue, like all the notes and research for it. And the second issue covers the Silver Age. Now he said he could not do that with the more modern stuff because he was like, "Oh, that's way too much." They put out a whole lot more books in the modern day than they did back in the day, just because we had better printing and stuff. But yeah, that's really interesting. And as cool as the narrative is, with Barry chronicling the entire DC Universe history, the coolest part for me, as a lore nerd, is the index in the back with all the annotations and references telling you where this character first showed up, where they first appeared, different things like that. And like the explaining of the different kind of mechanisms of DC's cosmology, which I honestly think is more interesting than Marvel's cosmology in my personal opinion, because like to me DC is just kind of a bigger scale universe. Marvel inherently is a more like, not, I don't want to say realistic because obviously they all have superpowers and there's all this fantastical stuff, but Marvel is the world outside your window, whereas DC is this world of gods and monsters. And like you really get to see that here, and it's fucking sick. If you're a nerd and you geek out over DC continuity and like just the massive sprawling history, this is the book for you. And if you've always been interested in DC's continuity and history and you think, oh, it's way too much, like it's way too much to keep up with, which I totally understand, the barrier for entry for comics is super high. Honestly, this is pretty new reader friendly. I would pick this up. It's fucking great, and it's a really good resource to kind of give to somebody to be like, hey, you want to learn a little bit about the DC Universe, just every little aspect of it? Here, check this out. It's awesome. As much as I nerded out about this book, this was not my pick of the week, though, so we'll move on to that in a second. So last but certainly not least is Fantastic Four, issue number 33. The final issue of this iteration of Ryan North's run on Fantastic Four, because Ryan North will be continuing with the new relaunch. It'll just be like a new renumbering, essentially. But it makes sense to why like they'll be starting fresh after this, because this is kind of the final part of the arc to return not only the Thing's powers, but restore the Fantastic Four to full strength. And man, I'm not gonna lie, this issue made me tear up a little bit. I did not expect to tear up over a little robot, because Herbie, the Fantastic Four's little robot buddy, is the major POV character throughout this issue, and he is vital in assisting the First Family in traveling to the moment before the Big Bang so that they can absorb the cosmic rays without affecting any of the timeline. It's literally down to milliseconds, or like maybe even smaller than that, some like infinitesimal unit of time. And they upgrade Herbie to be able to process things faster, and Herbie realizes by the end of it, like, we just have too much weight. There's not enough power to transport us all. And then he realizes, like, with his more advanced programming, he's able to understand more, and he's able to process things that he would not be able to process just as a regular robot. And one of those things is he realizes how much he loves his family, how much he loves the Fantastic Four, and that love allows him to kind of unlock a more human side to himself, and it gives him the ability to just be able to kind of, like, fight against rationality and logic and just kind of put it all on the line. He sacrifices himself for the four, for the family. And I'm not gonna lie, you guys, I teared up for this little guy. Herbie made me cry, bro. Herbie made me cry. This was so good. Like, the power of love and family is such a huge thing for the Fantastic Four. And the fact that, like, we felt this so strong in Herbie, a really underrated character in terms of the Fantastic Four's cast. Like, this just shows Ryan North really gets it. And it's just so good. Absolutely wonderful. As a huge fan of the Fantastic Four, I could not be happier. This was a great book. What a great way to end this run, and I am so looking forward to seeing, what Ryan North cooks up for the future in the relaunch. I'm excited. Are you guys excited for the movie coming out this month? I know I am. I cannot wait. But this book, needless to say, was of course fantastic and well deserving of my pick of the week. So, that's pretty much it for this episode of Comic Chaser. Let's go ahead and check out what's coming out next week, and I'll give you guys recommendations and kind of things that I am looking forward to in terms of next week in comics. Since this is coming out on Tuesday, what's coming out tomorrow? Let's find out. Okay, so I checked out what is coming out next week for me, and books that I'm looking forward to in terms of, what's on my pull list, and some of the stuff I can recommend for you guys is I am really looking forward to the next issue of Ultimate Wolverine issue number 7. We will get to see Ultimate Magic flex her muscles, and we'll actually get to see if the opposition really has helped Logan reclaim his identity, and if they have, what lengths will Colossus, Magic, and Omega Red go to bring back their prized possession. Also, Chip Zdarsky's Captain America run is starting soon, and I'm really, really excited for that. I cannot wait. Chip Zdarsky's a really solid writer. I've loved him on pretty much everything he's been on so far, and I thought his voice for Captain America in Avengers Twilight was fantastic, so I can't wait to see what it's like for him to write mainline Steve. This first arc seems to be like a flashback where this is actually Steve fresh out of the ice, and he's actually dealing with Doctor Doom, a young Doctor Doom, so that'll be really interesting. And Absolute Green Lantern issue 4 is out as well, and that is mostly them kind of wrapping up the Evergreen flashback story, and we see how Joe and Hal dealt with Abin Sur and the consequences and fallout of that battle. That's very curious to see where that goes as well. And all new Venom issue number 8. Look, you guys, I know there are a lot of you that hate on this book. You think Mary Jane being Venom is dumb, blah, 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 blah. But honestly, I'm really into it. And this will be Venom versus Doc Ock, so I'm very curious to see how that goes. It reminds me of the classic, Neversoft Spider-Man game where Doc Ock fused with Venom. So, we'll see how that's handled. And more importantly, I want to see more of Paul's suffering, because that's what this book provides me, and that is what I'm enjoying from it. So, if you want to see Paul suffer, you got to read All New Venom. That's all I got to say. That's it for my recommendations for next week, and that officially fully wraps up this episode of Comic Chasers. So don't forget to do all the usual YouTube things. Leave this video a like. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you don't miss any brand new episodes of Comic Chasers, any of the other new videos we have coming out, or any of the brand new episodes of our weekly podcast, the Channel Chasers Podcast, where we review various different movies and TV shows that come out that we want to yap about. So, until next time, this has been Jay from the Channel Chasers Podcast, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.